can't seem to fix my lighting. Keep going. Up
Looks
and
great.
down.
Welcome to another typology interview. We have Ben Vaserlan. How's it going? And we have, I guess that's the name of your channel. And then we have Jonathan Campbell and Sanna that are also part of your channel. Is that
Yes,
correct?
big part of the channel.
Right. And you guys are all specializing in one type of typology each and sort of working together to try to, I guess, not merge them, but find like a best fit type to whatever system or something like that?
I think we all know we have different. It's not quite a case of Jonathan only knows Enneagram. He knows other things as well. But his main strength is Enneagram, I would say.
Right.
And Sanna's main strength, I would say, is classical socionics.
Okay. And then your Model G, you said, like...
Yeah, only because of lack of competition.
Right.
I would say. So relative to others. And then I suppose secondarily with Kersey, because of Jeff, whose channel is called the SP Spaz. I've learned a lot from Jeff from about 2013 or 2014.
Right.
Jeff's going to be coming back soon. It's a little plug for Jeff. He's been off camera for about 3 years.
So, like,
I'll get back to the point. Pardon?
How did you guys all meet? How did this all come about?
Come on, Jonathan.
Well, I'd got into typology and I'd learned Myers-Briggs, and then I learned the Enneagram, and then I was getting into socionics. I was basically just binge watching as many videos on whatever channels I could find. I came across Ben's. I ended up sitting in one of his videos when he was interviewing Michael Pierce. I didn't really say anything. I watched another one, and him and the other guy had run out of things to say. So he asked the other guy if he knew Enneagram. The other guy said no, and I wrote in the chat, I know Enneagram. And he said, oh, do you know Jonathan Campbell? And he brought me in right then and there, and I have been his prisoner ever since.
Oh, yeah.
I'm his hostage. Yeah.
It all blends together. Was it Wojtek in that chat? And then we ended up talking about
and
Star
we still
Wars.
Are, to this day.
Okay, so... And then...
I'll just say that we've done videos on the types in Star Wars, and it's got basically 1,000 times fewer views than what it should get.
Right.
Because Star Wars is really popular. Star Wars is really popular, and hardly anybody else has done it. So why aren't there thousands and thousands of views for the Enneagram videos on Star Wars? Unbelievable.
I think that's a good argument that we're in a mass simulation and it's just nothing's making sense.
Yeah.
It was a joke.
I even used tactics once, like a little bit of a digression, but this is an example of how the channel goes. So, for instance, we did a video with Tamsi, and she's like extremely NI. And so I could describe her as an NI force sensitive, thinking that the phrase force sensitive would be picked up in the SEO.
Right.
And loads of Star Wars people would watch it, but no, it didn't happen. So all of these little tricks I try.
I like how Ben just said a little bit of a digression. That practically describes the entire channel. Because Ben is an INTP and his NE always goes on a little bit of a digression that lasts 40 minutes.
Right.
yeah, but usually it's a friend of the conversation rather than a friend of a friend. Yeah. I think it's a friend of a friend if I change subject completely and go on to say economics. But if I'm within typology, it's a friend.
Yeah. I actually caught a couple of your videos where you go on to economics, like right in the middle. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got to keep that under control, but I'll be mentioning it more when certain stuff happens. So I won't go into it at the moment.
Anyway, we have some of the longest videos on the typology community for a reason.
Right.
And
yeah.
The reason is sitting right there in
we're supposed to be promoting your channel here. We're like doing the opposite.
Yeah, but part of it. But if you see those really long videos, that
they're really good. But they're
really good. Yes. Yeah.
That's the guests, and I think that's I suppose that's the pros and cons of the channel, in that we do it in depth, and it is a case of all of us contributing to the depth. And so it attracts just under 1,000 subscribers at the moment, but because it's people who are really into typology, they end up being, those that it's selected from end up being very good guests, and guests know a lot.
Yeah, that's right. We know how Jonathan joined up. How did Sanna join up? How did you start your channel, Ben?
Okay. I started the channel. I got it in the sequence right. I think my first video was it was a video with Jack Aaron when he had a video that's not on the World Socionic Society video, but it's on his personal channel, something like Echidna 1000. And I was in the 3rd World Socionic Society hangout in about 2013. And I was pretty much the only one there. Now, weird thing is, right at the beginning, you have Claudia Vainglory. And she ended up being a burlesque dancer and changing her physical form somewhat. But she's only in it for like a minute, and then she's gone. But she was in it long enough to make her the thumbnail. Anyway, so after that, it's me and Jack, and I'm giving him, at the time, what I thought were hard questions. And he answered them very well. I'll give him credit for that. And he was knackered because he was doing a play at the time and half falling asleep in the hangout. So that's a good video. So that was 2013. Either 2013 or 2014, I did a video on Jeff's channel. And the original video was called Socionic 2. And that's where I talk about Model A, this model.
Right.
And it was basically talking about ESFP and Model A to Jeff. And that video's 3 hours long. And it's mostly Jeff talking. So I said something in the description like, because I only talk 10% of the time, it's only 10% boron. Maximum 10% boron. Then Jeff gave me permission to put that up. And then I put the other, so that's 2 videos up there. Then in 2014, I knew Elena, ESFJ Resembler, and she's acquainted with Victor Glanko. And WSS organized a paid event with Victor Glanko in 2014. I think it was in July 2014. And people had to pay like $20 a question. And they had to get up to like $200 to get the interview with Victor. And then Alina said to me, oh, Ben, you can ask a question for free. And so I'm in there and I asked this question about what's the relationship between type and the various kinds of intelligence in, say, IQ. So, for instance, linguistic, visuospatial,
emotional.
Yeah, that kind of thing. And as I thought, and Victor said, well, you know, the NS tend to be good at linguistic intelligence. And it's just because of preferences to practice. I think maybe the STs go towards visuospatial because they get interested in areas that require it. Anyway, the point is, so I had that. Then this is where the NE comes in. I also knew Dario because of like little libertarian things as well, because Dario's a libertarian. I'm not outing him in that respect. So what I thought, I will send Dario's video that I only found out about because Jeff mentioned it, where he mentioned the Google authors, Neuroscience of Personality. Jeff mentioned it. I eventually watched it, and I thought, I'll take a punt, and I'll send this to Victor. And Victor was very interested in Dario's video. And so then what I did is I created a group chat of me, Elena, Victor, and Dario. And then Elena, and early in 2015, said, right, we're going to do a hangout. Ben, you're hosting. And that was the first hangout, which was just a get together. And then we did, and then I did a video with Dario where I interviewed him on, it was an update on his research. And then we went through INTJ, Model G, roughly. And because it was in a very rough form at the time, it's probably the easiest for people to understand. And we're able to ask Dario questions such as, how is FE for you as an INTJ resembler? And so we were able to get his research on it. And he had written a paper called The Sixth Function. That's the sixth in the Beeb model. So basically the flip side of the auxiliary, which is the Galenko creator. So anyway, so you can see how the ball got rolling with the Galenko videos out of those previous things. And then, Jonathan, can you give the story of how Catherine Farber got on the channel?
Yes, I'd done a whole bunch of videos with Ben for about a year, and what was it like? How many videos? I can't remember if I'd done so many videos or if I'd broken some kind of record, like I was almost the most featured person on his channel or something, and it said, you did 45 videos or something, and then you wanted to have a rest. Yes.
And then in August, I interrupted it by saying, hey, do you want to do a video with Hayley? And then you came back off your sabbatical. I can't remember, not sabbatical. What did they call it in the summer when they closed down universities?
Holiday.
Yeah, you came back off your holiday from me. And interrupted, then you went back on holiday. I think what I did was I left a cheeky comment on one of Catherine's videos about David Farber's ability to read a teleprompter and how he got better in subsequent videos. She actually responded to that well, and then I thought, oh, that sort of guilt tripped me a little bit. I guilt tripped myself for being a little bit cheeky, and then I said, hey, what about Jonathan here? Here's Jonathan. Here's an example of Jonathan's knowledge on Enneagram. Would you like to do an interview? And then eventually the ball started rolling from that because we got on well in the first hangout.
Cool. Yeah. So and then, like I asked about Sanna, how did you join then?
I was just peacefully browsing Facebook and then ambushed.
And ambushed. So everything was peaceful, and now you're a part of the.
Yeah, I'm stuck. Now I'm just
then lack of peace.
Chaos, whether I want to or not. Help.
Yeah.
I think actually I was just looking for like Halcyonics groups or something, and I joined. And as soon as I joined, I got a message from Ben.
Right. So be careful when you contact Ben, everybody out there. If you contact Ben, he might rope you into something. Yeah.
I mean,
there's no escape.
City, and it will happen.
Yeah, it depends.
Right. Okay, so then how do you work together in your videos? Do you think about the videos beforehand as a group? Do you sort of just, I don't know, is there like a process, or is it just wild chaos?
Well, yeah, usually we think about them as a group, or Ben will suggest something, or someone else will suggest something.
Right.
And
yeah, that's recently happened with Janae and Shannon have suggested Enneagram Hangouts.
Yeah,
right.
So yeah, he's actually, if Ben moves his camera, you can probably see a whole bunch of plans he's got.
All right then. Yes, indeed. So, and these are the more immediate ones. So we've got here Enneagram 4-6X versus Enneagram 6-4X. So that's basically, I think, yes, Shannon's idea, which was basically to show the difference between the two, between the core 6, core 4, or when it's a secondary fix. Are we doing that on Friday or Saturday, Jonathan?
So like, how do you synergize all of the systems? Because I noticed that you don't really prescribed to a single system. Like this is something that I just sort of picked up, that like everybody would fit into a system.
Okay.
In that system, like, is this sort of the way of thinking?
Okay. Well, what I do is I use what is consistent with, because there's an axis, not an axis of evil, but an axis of quality with Jung, Behrens, Kersey, and Nardi. And especially Kersey, Behrens of Nardi, that's like a tree, because David Kersey. So there's also, you got Jeff there as well. Let's diagram this out to show the connections between the two.
Diagram this out.
Yeah. It's got to, because it shows the influences on me.
All right. No, I also noticed like all your books out there. Like anytime you have a question or anytime you want to say something, you can within. Like, you take a long time to say something, but to find something in a book, it's like instant. You'll just find the page.
Yeah, but I've not read them all, though. I mean, there's loads of blank pages. Now, from learning the memory book, the reason why I can remember what I've looked at is because it's this thing called overlearning. And that's one of the reasons why I read so slowly, but because I go over it, I'm able to recall that bit. So if I was a 5, I'd be dangerous. Jonathan thinks I am a 5, though. He thinks I'm a social 5.
Okay.
Right. I'm just going to put, I'll put Jung there, and then I'm going to put Behrens there, and then Nardi there. Right. And then I suppose that's actually a separate influence. Right.
I suppose, yeah.
Well, so here we go. Oh, wait a minute. I better put a double F on Jeff. He wouldn't like me misspelling his name. Right. Right then. So I looked at the, wait a minute, what was my process? What's the timeline? A lot of influence from Jeff talking about temperament, especially on sensing types and artisans. And he's able to go beneath the stereotypes of it. And I think, and I've come to this conclusion in the past, I have a theory about Kersey, and that is because it can be understood at various levels of depth. So because it can be understood at a superficial level, a lot of people will just stop at that superficial level, thinking, oh, I understand it now.
Mm-hmm.
They don't realize there's all the stuff about motivation, and then at its core, it's systems theory, it's Gestalt psychology. So in terms of integrating everything, it's all the stuff I've learned from Jeff, and then he introduced me to Kersey, and then seeing the commonalities between Jung and Kersey and Jung and socionics. But things such as SI, where things such as the JP problem, have you talked about that yet?
With who?
On the channel, just as a video.
No, not at all.
Okay. Well, because it's all this thing about, there's a good guy out there, D.A. Drenth, he has the site Personality Junkie. And a few years ago, he did this wonderful duo of articles called Judging and Perceiving Revisited.
Right.
And then he did it before, and it was about how, say, a type such as me, INTP resembler, is an internal judger and an external perceiver, in that we organize our information but not the world around us. So it's organizing the TI kind of stuff but not the TE kind of stuff.
So this was his take on it.
Yeah, and it all made sense. And then you start to think, and then if you think about INTJ, well, they organize their external world if it pertains to the efficiency of the thing that they're going to achieve. They're not just going to tidy up their house for the sake of it.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of organizing their actions to achieve a goal that they value, they're going to organize that. So then when you look at, this is a bit of a digression, but again, it's exemplifies my
I'm
thoughts.
still waiting for you to answer the question, but we'll get there, I guess. Yeah.
But the answer, I can't remember what the question was. The question, yes, it is relevant to how everything ties together.
We'll get there. Good.
So, because it's talking about, then I'm talking about Jung's SI profile in a moment.
Okay.
And it has to do with this JP thing. Socionics does it based on the lead function. The problem is it's hard to write questions to get at that. So, for example, Haley on the channel, she took the MBTI and scored 100% J.
Okay.
In terms of, so how would you define questions to get her to score as a P? To actually get at all of the internal perception with the lead NI. That would be very difficult.
If you were going about the test like that, yeah, that's kind of a flawed way to test somebody, yeah.
Yeah, it's very hard to, so this explains why MBTI did it in terms of all of their questions being on how somebody interacts in the outside world.
Yeah.
So now I get back to the original point I wanted to make about Jung's SI-DOM profile. So,
actually, you know what? This profile that Jung talked about in Psychological Types for SI, it was like the only function that really didn't make sense. Like it was kind of off.
Oh, but you see, the thing is, when you get to the profile of the type, then he starts talking about what does the SI-DOM look like, and he says from the outside they look very rational. And then he had that key bit in there about the inferior NE sees dangers. Sees negative possibilities.
Negative possibilities.
Like, right, that all fits in with the Kersey temperament, with the way guardians are, and then how they seem.
So that's why Jung said it like that, because he wanted it to fit in with the Kersey temperament.
No, I'm saying it like that. I'm just saying it fits in like that, you cheeky so-and-so.
I love the cause and effect here.
Right. So, there is very subtle stuff in the SI profile where I'm showing by example how the channel works.
Right.
So he would have this bit where you said that the SI didn't make sense in that you've got this subjective factor. I get the impression that Jung is saying that the SI-DOM doesn't want to be overstimulated because then the object is almost, it's too much in the psyche of the SI-DOM. They want just enough stimulation just to do their subjective thing. Okay. Just a little bit. Because if you put an SI-DOM on a roller coaster, they're not going to go, oh, this reminds me of the time in 1999 or something like that. Because the data is like really there in your face. They want a little bit less. And that appears, that's in Jung's SI profile, where they only want a little bit of stimulation. That's the starting point for the subjective factor. It's just the starting point. And then, so that's how that goes together. So that's these, and then you got a big thing here. Linda Behrens taught Dario Nardi, and they've worked together as theory partners since about 25 years.
Yeah.
And Linda Behrens, student of David Kersey.
Yep.
Now, arguably, it could be. Now, Linda Behrens is sort of repackaging David Kersey's work
and she
as her own.
Also, the what's it called? The drawing a blank here.
Interaction styles.
Exactly. Thank you.
Oh, well, yeah, well, that's the thing is now she's very good, Linda, at giving credit to David West Kersey.
Right.
And she even spoke at his funeral where she says it was David Kersey who came up with these dichotomies of directive versus informing and expressive reserve. And then she does her INTP thing and say, oh, well, this is the same as in social styles and these other things. And David Kersey didn't do it as a thing on its own. And he even asked his son, well, what do you call these things? Linda Behrens calls it interaction styles. What do you call it? And he's not got a name for it. But he sort of has it linked to, okay, want to get in the weeds? There's a slight difference in emphasis between interaction style, Linda Behrens' work based on Kersey's work, because Please Understand Me Too has all this stuff about directive versus informing roles. Linda Behrens thinks that the types are that they have a natural interaction style. So, for example, ISTP. You think in some systems you resemble ISTP.
Right.
Linda
I
Barron's
wanted to ask you about it in the future. I guess we'll stay on one topic at a time.
Right, yeah, but this is just an example.
Right, yeah.
Right, this is just an example of where she would see the type as chart the course and as directive, but Kersey has a little bit of a different frame on it where he says they have a predisposition towards contending roles. So how much is it come out within their role enactment rather than it being a natural thing or predisposition? So they're going off the same hymn sheet. And Linda Behrens even uses a lot of her names for the types very similar to the Kersey names. So all this is integrated, and then Dario gets onto his EEG research.
I'm going to be a little bit of a heretic here. I'm going to ask you, what do you think about interaction styles?
I think it's quite good. I really like it.
Yeah.
And I agree with, have you seen that video yet with Carol Linden?
No.
It's excellent. She's brilliant how she handles me. Like getting me not to I just think some people wrote that they thought it was a little bit rude. I thought it was brilliant.
I love how self-aware.
You might want to watch it for advice. That's another reason to watch the video.
All right.
How to handle me.
To get some pointers on how to handle Ben. Right?
Yes. So my point is that it's like Nardi and yes, here it is. So I asked him, how does all the people he's done the research on, I asked him, how do you type them? And he says, I don't use the MBTI. He said he might have used an inventory a little bit called the Interstrength Cognitive Assessment. So something to assess functions. But he said in order to type the people, he works out their interaction style and their temperament. Then he gives them 2 or 3 profiles and they have a process of self-discovery. So that's his process for typing people that he did all the EEG research on. And all of the methods used to get to those types of Behrens's, and they're the same as Kersey's. So again, it integrates. And when we did the hangout on, say, SJs and SPs that Dario presented, it's like, this is validation of Kersey's temperaments from a neuroscience point of view. So that's why I tend to lean towards that. So it's 3 influences, really. It's Kersey, Behrens, Nardi, and I'm very much into the Jungian functions. I love how he described the NT functions. I think they're the best descriptions. I mean, it's really good. The NE, the NI, the TE, and the TI. And we've got Jeff as well teaching me about Kersey stuff, always with the practical examples. And we reviewed 130 odd episodes of Homicide: Life on the Street for the sensing types. This is relevant because all of the lead characters in the first season were based on real people.
Okay.
So that's the influence. So Kersey, Behrens, Nardi, then Jung, and then Dr. G. Then I get the Model G profiles from Victor, eventually, after a while. And the intuitive types line up beautifully with the Kersey types. So it's like they line up really well. There's a problem, though, with the sensory introverts.
Okay.
Right. And so that's it all in a nutshell. If you're asking about how things come together, that's how it is. Like 3 different hats.
Yes, but I was also more asking, like, you have this person, okay, and you don't know where he fits, what type he is. And I saw from your videos that you were saying, okay, well, maybe Enneagram works best for him. Let's put him in Enneagram.
Yeah.
Right. And you would just be like, okay, socionics won't work for him. This won't work for him. We'll just put him in Enneagram. And this is like the way you view typing.
Yeah.
Like, not only are you a specific type, but you're also a type within a specific system. You need a specific system for your type.
Oh, no, I think... No, go on, Jonathan.
Yeah. Well, I would see them as kind of complementary systems. I don't think, if Ben ever said that, I don't think he meant that, Enneagram is good for you, but not Myers-Briggs or anything. I think he meant more like...
From a typing point, what is easier?
It's easier to type someone in certain systems, and when you get them in that system, then it's easier to do the next. Like if you know someone's Enneagram type, it's easier to get their cognitive type and vice versa.
It's whatever is most noticeable. So, for example, somebody could have an interaction style that is very in charge. And you got to think, okay, that eliminates INFP. It's a good bet that eliminates INFP. And you can then start going towards... now, I would suggest to Carol, when she teaches her classes, she would say, I suggested to Carol, do you teach temperament first, then interaction styles? It says, no, I teach interaction styles first.
Right.
And that's what you can see with people, their energy level. Now, at the moment, I appear get things going and expressive, but that's because I'm on my territory, to use Victor's phrase.
Okay.
You'll notice it. If you have a convention of INTP mathematicians, they're all going to be expressive, meeting their own kind. You put them in a normal situation, they're not going to be expressive.
Right.
So this is not a normal situation.
No, this is not a normal situation. Not a normal situation for you, is it? Either, Jonathan.
Yeah. Anyway, I'd say that basically Enneagram is a separate but complementary system. The Enneagram is more like your drives and your motives and basic fears and stuff, whereas the Jungian stuff, like all tied together, is about how you judge and perceive the world. It's how your brain works.
Oh,
it's like
good. No, I'll just say that Kersey is a nice little bridge between the Jungian system and the Enneagram system, because half of Kersey has to do with what Linda Behrens calls essential motivator patterns, and then she changed it to essential motivators. So it's like so we've recently been doing a series on how Enneagram type 6s vary by Kersey temperament and Jungian type. So for instance, we have somebody like Laura, and she's a 6. You on your channel, you typed her as ISTJ.
And that wasn't me that typed her. It was Objective Personality has her as ISTJ.
Okay, there you go. There's a perfect example of if you know Enneagram and Jungian type. So for instance, if you're typing her by Jungian type, you don't know about Enneagram, you probably are going to think, oh, she's some kind of guardian.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like getting down to these nuances of when is she by the book? When is she want to follow the instructions and everything? It's like when she's at work and she says multiple times, I don't want to lose my job. She said that on 4 or 5 occasions, and maybe 3 times in the same video. But when she's on her own, it's more the INTP thing of doing things her own way, thinking for herself, rather than the preference of ISTJ is always to look towards an authority. And in the latest Hangout, Jonathan asked her a good question about abstract versus concrete authorities. And I think for her, she looks more towards concrete authorities because they can fire her. Whereas with the abstract authorities, not so much, as she's more thinking for herself.
Mm-hmm.
So that is an example of if someone's an unusual Enneagram and Jungian combination, it can obscure their type. It's like if someone say ISTP and Enneagram type 9, they might look ISFP, or that can obscure them.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's like Fowler. Fowler is type 9, I believe. And I believe that yes, and she's a good example. I suggest people watch that. Oh yes, this is another thing of my point of view, is I see it as about patterns and a degree to which somebody resembles a pattern. Yeah. How did the system, get this, Jonathan, the system typed Fowler as ENTJ.
Yep.
I saw that, yes.
So,
Farah's said like so many different types over the years.
But there's a channel I suggest people watch who have seen the Farah video on this. We did a video with Victor Galenko. He typed Farah based on an interview, and we went over her EEG data.
Yep.
And the interesting thing is that Dario talked about is that he talked about her natural type versus her developed type. And so it looked like, and he says it looked, and based on her EEG activity, it was like 3 types which came towards him. INFJ in his typology. So Cuvier Sanna, INFJ, ISFP, ISTP. But he was wondering if he didn't know what was the natural type and then what was the type from development. So we don't know. She may have been, it looks like, based on her career working in science on an experimental sort of concrete level and solving problems, that it looks like maybe her natural type was ISFP and then she developed towards a thinking type. But you can see how, because of her development, it's like you've not really got, in her case, she's evolved so much, it is about patterns. There's a pattern here, a pattern there, a pattern there.
Just to clarify, we're not saying that your type changes or anything. More like
it can be obscured by personal development.
Your type is constant, but your job can kind of make you look like a different type. Or your experiences.
Yeah, I'm a little bit different.
My NI is really hurting. All the time.
It's a little bit tricky because I don't even like to use the word type, and I'm a little bit like Linda Bones and Dario on this. It's like they get very pedantic about it and put type pattern.
Why you say resembler instead of?
Because I don't believe that somebody is a type. They can only resemble a type because it's not a thing that. And if we talk about it as if something exists, it's like, it's like there's a thing inside of them that we have to see, and then they're exactly that thing.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's about patterns.
Okay.
They're useful metaphors. Types are useful metaphors for describing the real person. Obviously, there's something there that's uniting all the INTPs and all the INTJs and all the INFJs, whatever. But it's not. But the descriptions, all the type stuff, that's all an attempt to get to it. The map is not the territory.
Yes, very good, Jonathan. So, Benjamin, you did a hangout. We did an off-air event with David Mark Kersey. Do you agree is about as INTP as you can get?
No.
No? People more INTP than him? Wow.
No, I think he's probably NITI, something like this.
Oh, Gordon Bennett. You really are using a system that is this objective personality thing is a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
If you ask me. If you're typing David Mark Kersey as INTJ.
I think he's using NI and not NE. That's why.
Well, here's the thing. Victor's diagnosis of him, he put him as I think he put him as a harmonizing subtype and said that he has accentuated NI. But he got it right for INTP. Like I said, I mean, he's too much. We don't really want to talk too much about him because people can see that video. If you just type David Mark Kersey interview, it's 4 hours long.
Oh, wow.
Of him going through the profile. And the thing is, the Kersey INTP profile is based on him.
Right.
Right.
Okay. Sanna, what do you think of all this? What do you think of these crazy guys here?
Well, see, I don't mix systems this way. It's actually causing me internal pain to listen to it.
To what?
It's actually causing, I don't mix systems. It's causing me pain to listen to it because I'm interested in multiple different systems and I will study multiple different systems. Right. But I do not convert them. So
convert what?
I assume that you're the same, if you're MBTI, INTP, I don't assume that you're LII.
Okay.
Those require a different kind of analysis to figure it out. So,
do you think someone could be typed differently in socionics than in MBTI?
Yes, because of first of all, because the definitions are different, and also because MBTI is very subjective. There are lots of competing different types. People call it MBTI, but they're actually completely different. I don't know what the system is that you're using, but it sounds like it's yet another different system that I've actually not heard of. I will need to look at
Well, I'm just thinking about the Jungian basis behind it all. So does socionics ignore that and MBTI sticks to it? Or does MBTI stick to it and socionics ignores it? Or they just branched off into
that's a separate hangout to go function by function.
It's actually very easy to answer that. Socionics Model A specifically, then uses Model G, which is slightly different, but Model A does not adhere completely to Jung's definition.
Doesn't.
It is.
Well, basically, socionics and Myers-Briggs both start with Jung, but socionics also brings in this other system called information elements.
Yeah, and they've been developed further from Jung, so they don't, there are differences by now.
They went in their own direction. The cause in the name. There was more emphasis on social psychology and how the types interact with each other in the world and their relations.
So there's a divergence in type then. So all of these systems are typing people based on different functions.
This
is a hornet's nest to ask this question right now.
Great.
Yes. I mean, I'm the one on Ben's channel whenever we talk like this and I start zoning out because I don't know which system we're talking about. I'm the one to point out this is not socionic. I will I will happily talk about MBTI specifically or Kersey. I like Kersey.
Right.
But I will also point out when it's not in alignment with Model A.
Yeah, and so she's the conscience of the channel, keeping me on the straight and narrow. So Sanna, what do you like about Kersey?
Hard. It's very hard. I'm pretty sure you can see why.
Yeah.
But at least now, I mean, there was a point where I did not like the cognitive dissonance with the sensory introvert profiles. I was like, damn it, they are different, and I want them to be the same.
You still don't like it, but you.
I don't like it. I want them all to be, because a thing with INTP is they like the idea of this is the truth, and we're looking at the truth from different angles, and there is a thing there that we can look at from different angles. We can triangulate the true pattern that is there. Uh-huh. But getting back to something more important, you said that you like Kersey. Why do you like Kersey?
I like the interaction styles as you described them. I suppose, in a sense, I just like all different kinds of systems. I'm quite happy to study them separately instead of all at once. And I don't know, Kersey, it's probably because of you. You kind of studied into everything. So you're the reason that I actually learned Kersey. So
does it not bother any of you that there's all these different systems that are contradictory to each other?
Well, yeah, but that's a big point of concern. What I'll say is, what I do is, my approach with socionics is, I'm like, it's typical INTP is, I don't care what the original definition is. This is the definition I'm going to use that is consistent with all of these other things. So, for instance, when I did that hangout with you, Benjamin, and when I talked about TI not being logic,
right,
and you agreed with that, but socionics will define it in a way that makes it look like it's doing that, and that annoys me.
Right.
We have our arguments regularly, actually, anytime it comes up. But somehow we don't,
Yeah, and
each
so
other.
there's a thing with me. I'll just say this bit, and I'll shut up for a while. But it's a lot of so when I show the TI definition in this book, and I think I showed it to you, Benjamin.
Okay.
The one in there, the TI definition in there. I think I showed it to you when we did the Kersey thing. At the end, maybe. I can't remember. I know I showed it to somebody. Anyway, so in my opinion, the socionics definitions are very narrow. So they're precise. It's easier for everybody to get on the same page with the definitions. Right. They are very narrow. So they'll call FI ethics of relations. And they'll define that like as a narrow thing of, and we did a whole hangout on this, Sanna and I, comparing how Nardi views FI and how socionics views ethics of relations.
And I don't think they're narrow, so this is just another...
But the thing is, though, as soon as you start getting to the EII profile and how FI works in the EI, it then starts talking about values, beliefs, and ethics and stuff.
Uh-huh.
So... and it makes it look really cursy INFP. So it's like they can't even. And then you get bits like I just think that their definitions are very narrow. But when you look at the type as a whole, like say if you look at, I think the type I've studied in most depth might be ENFP. If you look at Galenko's ENFP long form profile, so this is the profile without any functions in. The only jargon it has in is IEE. And if you compare that to the Kersey ENFP, they are pretty much the same. And I've gone through this with Alicia, and she likes both profiles.
It seems to me that you really like all of these little nuances, Ben. Like you really like comparing all the systems and like this is the difference here, this is the difference here, and just being really knowledgeable about all of the subtle differences and variances.
Yeah, well, I actually think the actual type patterns do exist as a pattern, and these are different angles on the truth. Sanna is a little bit like she either wants it, I think, completely locked down and like this is the system, and then she'll say, yeah, but it's not real anyway. It's just useful.
No, I don't think they're actual things, or rather, if there are patterns, I think there are a lot more patterns than 16.
A lot of ways to define patterns, yeah.
So I don't buy the idea that there is one ultimate system that's right.
One ring to rule them all, yeah.
To me, it comes down to how you define them. How do you define your functions or IMEs and socionics?
Yeah.
And depending on how you define them, the type patterns appear based on that.
Yeah, but
because you define them a certain way, that's how your system works. I don't think it's a matter of who's right and who's wrong, which is why I will quite happily study all of them.
yeah.
So you're more accepting of differences. You're more accepting, like, let's just stick to one system and type here, or go to another system, type here, but don't mix the systems. That's like not the right way to go about it.
Yeah, I don't think accepting is how people usually describe me when it comes to this. I'm very compartmentalized. I want to know which system we're talking about. And as long as I know, then I will talk about that system in that context.
Right. So
you guys have three systems here. I'm gonna interrupt you again, Ben.
Yeah.
I know you really want to talk.
That's all right.
Three systems here. You could type someone based on all three systems, right? And they can get a different type in each of the three. Well, obviously.
No. They usually get a pretty similar.
It depends. It depends. Some people will get different types depending on which system, which model of the system, because socionics is not just one system either. There are people developing, there's Model A and Model G that are the biggest, but there are others as well. But the point is, it really depends. I'm not the same type in MBTI and socionics.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah, but I would challenge that though, because right now she's saying, "Oh, I've got to keep them separate." Well, at least in NADI, you'll say, "Well, you're not doing transcontextual thinking there, so how are you an NP?" But
How many type
MBTI is
combinations
different.
are there in Enneagram?
Oh, Jonathan.
Could you repeat the question?
How many type combinations are there in Enneagram?
In Enneagram, there are 9 core types, but then you have some. They're divided into 3 centers.
Right.
So
how many type combinations?
Well, I'm getting to that because that's a complicated question. So
It's not just a specific number?
no.
No.
So there's 9 core types, and they're divided into 3 centers. So 9 and 1 is the center, 2, 3, and 4 are the heart center, and 5, 6, and 7 are the head center. There's a notion called tri-type, by which you have a type in each center. So, for example, I'm a type 1, that's my core type, but I'm specifically a 152.
So it's like 8
That's
choose
my
3.
tri-type. Sorry?
It's 8 choose 3. That's the number of types?
No, there's 9 core
No,
types.
it's 27 times 6.
Yeah,
So
9.
I'll just say, there's 27 tri-type combinations. So, for example,
So
Jonathan is 152.
Yes.
There's 6 combinations with 1, 2, and 5 in the tri-type.
Okay.
And there's 27 of those tri-type archetypes. So 27 times 6 will give you the number of tri-type combinations. But then you've also got instinctual stacking.
Yeah,
as
that's
well.
because there's
And
also
subtypes.
So
And it
between
gets
the
even
three of
more
you,
than
you
that,
can
where
type
it's
someone
like with the wings as well.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. So between the three of you, you can type someone different in each system, and then it would end
No,
up.
no, no, no,
Yeah,
no.
but we usually
Enneagram,
type somebody the
see,
same, though, the
see,
three of us.
See, here's the thing though. Socionics and Myers-Briggs.
We all think
they're-
Damon's an ESTP. Right.
Okay, Socionics, Myers-Briggs, Kersey, Burns, all that stuff. They're all coming from Jung. Enneagram is totally separate. Enneagram's a separate but complementary system. So I can't say that I'm typing someone in Enneagram and that's different.
Right, but I mean, someone could be a different
Different
Enneagram and the same MBTI or the same
Like,
Psionics type and a different Enneagram type. And so that would add to the depth of types. So you
Yes,
multiply
so
them
like-
together as a different possibility.
yeah. So, for example, I'm an INFJ and I'm a type 1 INFJ. I know INFJs who are type 2 or type 4 or type 6 or type 9. So that's different types of INFJs. So that basically shows all the variety of INFJs.
Yeah, Sanna is more type 4.
But there's also, and obviously there's tri-type instincts, but then compare me, a type 1 INFJ, to say a type 1 ISTJ, and you'll see that we'll have certain things in common, but we'll also have the function differences.
Okay, so I'm going to start to end things here because we keep things a little shorter on my channel. We don't go 4 hours.
Oh, no, we've only just started. That's the tip of the iceberg.
That's the way it works here. But you guys are welcome to come back. I would just like to get like maybe a final thought from each of you and maybe end with Ben for your final thought. So let's start with Jonathan. That final thought.
All right. My final thought is: if you're an ISTP, how have you handled this all this NE stuff? You must have been driven completely insane.
He's INTP.
Completely insane. But I don't know if another NE would handle it well either. So.
Oh, I've seen shit, man. I've been in hangouts with like 2 or 3 INTPs, and it goes
with too many NEs together, it just.
Oh yeah, you're drowning.
Yeah.
I don't know how I survived.
Right. Especially as an NI, that's crazy. Yeah. What about you, Sanna? A final thought?
My final thought is we should have probably warned you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll just say that I actually try to get to the proper definition of the functions.
Yeah.
And that's why I mentioned Jung and Kersey and Behrens, in that if it takes into account the temperament as well, then you can be pretty darn sure of the definition of the functions. There's just one problem, and that's when it comes to SI. You never got around to show that graphic.
Yep, that's what I was just about to do here.
All right, okay, here we go.
For some reason, this is the wrong one.
Yes. Yeah, that's the objective personality.
That's my graphic of
Yeah.
objective personality. But okay, I'm going to close some windows here.
At least it's not just me that has problems with Zoom.
Yeah, right. Too many windows. It's funny because I actually had it open.
Yeah, so there is a thing in me where there's a little bit of a tension between the whole type pattern, something I'm starting to get into a little bit, dipping my toe into systems theory, versus the elements. And this is something that you've had from David Mark Kersey, like the element versus the gestalt, where to what extent is a feature an emergent property of the whole system rather than something that comes from the function. And so we could say that certain features, certain traits of the guardian temperament that might come from the whole temperament rather than, say, pinning it on SI. Right, there we go. So this is how my mind works.
This I noticed all of your books are this marked up. This
Yes.
And yeah, this is how you read.
Yes, very slowly.
And probably several times over. So what are we looking at here?
Right, so that thing there, the more dimensions and parts of your brain that you can involve in a memory, the more easily you can remember it later. Because I was thinking, why do we know this from experience that guardians have a good memory. And I'm wondering, why have they got a good memory? And there's sort of like two reasons I've come up with. One is the fact that on a temperament level, they don't mind doing the same thing, overlearning, doing the same thing again and again. And I remember somebody saying, it may have been a class with Amber, Neuroceptor, and Jeff, we were talking, or maybe Neuroceptor, yes, Neuroceptor and Dr. Mike from NF Geeks. And we're talking about how the SJs like to do the same subject again and again and again, rather than move on to the next subject. You know, say when you're teaching them at school, they'd rather do the same thing. And so that thing of overlearning, well, that's going to help them with their memory. And I think Dario wrote something similar. So that's a temperament thing of they've got the self-discipline and they like doing the same thing again and again. So that's going to help them with their memory because of just burning it like that, burning it in. But then there's also this thing of, when it mentions there in the graphics of the different kinds of associations you can get to a thing, helps you to recall it. Right. And Kersey wrote about associative speech. So it's almost as if that's how guardians usually show their NE, is they make connections. Oh, this reminds me of this. And it's usually something on a concrete level. So they've got these connections between things. This reminds me of this thing we did. Oh, my cousin, he had this thing like this. So you got these connections. Again, that might be another reason that helps, that could explain part of the context of why guardians have good memories. Maybe it's those connections.
Yeah, exactly.
Those associations.
So this guy,
especially
on the screen here,
yep.
Dr. Fergus Craig. I
Yep.
did a really long interview with him. It was almost 31 minutes. That's pretty long. But he basically explained almost the same thing. And he's a pioneer. Like his research shows up in first-year psychology textbooks. And so he was saying the same thing, that his model was based on memory is stronger when you use both intuition and sensory, in his own words, in different words, but that's what he was explaining.
So by intuition, was he talking about like the kind of any kind of thing of associations?
Yeah, there's the sensory memory that where like just words or vocabulary and or just factual stuff. And then once you actually start connecting it to deeper concepts and deeper constructs, and then the memory goes deeper. It actually
yeah.
You remember it better.
Yeah, that's what I've got so far in that book about concentrating on meaning. Now,
right.
Jeff told me something very interesting. He said Dario, from his research, said that the SPs have the best short-term memory, the SJs have the best long-term memory,
SE
and
versus
the MJs think they're right, but they're wrong.
Okay.
Hey.
I thought the hangout was tomorrow.
Cool, guys. So yeah, thanks for coming out. If you want to see more of this kind of stuff, longer videos, go check out Ben Vaserlan's channel.
Wait a minute, I'll just tell you why SPs have a good memory, because they're really clued into the moment and they're focused on the moment. That's another aspect of memory, attention.
Right. That's right. I agree.
Right.
All right. Have a good one, guys. Thanks so much for coming. Really appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Bye.